Hello. I'll just mute now, okay?
Thank you. Lovely. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm just going to kind of start just so we can get through everything, and we've got lots of time for hearing all about Ecodrama's projects and what they do. I'm Amy and I'm from Education Scotland, and I am delighted that Ecodrama are here to share with you two different aspects of things they've been doing. One is the Future Calling, which was a project with Beauclair Academy. And it was actually delivered during the COVID pandemic when schools were, closed and everything. And also hearing about their Out to Play, which is their early years outdoors things. And we've got the lovely Emily and Saffron, who are both from Ecodrama. Just a little bit of housekeeping. You are free to keep your camera on if you would like to. We'd love to see your faces. I will keep it kind of admitting people throughout. Please do mute yourself, unless, of course, you want to have a question or a wee input. Definitely, if you can, use the chat function to put any questions in there, any comments, and we'll make sure that we pick up on them. That's my job. Also, just to say that after this, we will send on kind of further information. The session is also being recorded, so afterwards, again, we'll have this uploaded, but we will make sure that we send all the links and resources out via email, and that'll be the one that you signed up via Eventbrite as well. So I'm delighted to pass over to Saffron.
Thank you so much, Amy, and thank you everybody for coming along to join us our webinar today. Storytelling, drama and creativity in learning for sustainability. So to kick us off, we'd love to know a little bit about all of you who are attending today. So I'm going to invite you to, if you can, access the chat function. If you can type in your name, your job title and something from nature that makes you say, wow. All righty, I'll put mine into the chat as well. My nature wow is going to be waterfalls. We'll wait and see what a few that pop up into the chat as we go. If you're having any trouble accessing the chat function, I should say feel free to unmute if that's easier. Well.
I'm Lorna.
Hi, Lorna.
And my favourite nature thing is my allotment.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay.
Very nice. Thank you so much. And I can see Alison's popped in bird song. That's a really, really lovely idea. Hello, Andrea, I can see you're just joining us. I'm Saffron from Ecodrama. We're just kicking off by inviting everybody to type into the chat their name, their job title and something from nature that makes them say wow. So if you've got a chance to do that, that'd be wonderful. We've got the ocean coming up as well. Lovely stuff. Oh, brilliant. Excellent. Lovely. It's nice to see some different ideas of different things as well. Oh, we've got seeing the bees buzz from flower to flower and the sound as well. Oh, some really lovely ideas coming through. The view from a hilltop and, oh, lovely gift. The nature of snow. Lovely stuff. Brilliant. Excellent. Well, thank you all so much for popping them in. We'll be chatting a lot about nature and nature connection as we go through today. So it's lovely to get those ideas. But for now, I'm going to pass over to Emily, Ecodrama's artistic director, who's going to just run us through the sort of brief outline of what the webinar will be today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hi, so I'm Emily. I'm just going to briefly introduce the purpose of the webinar today and a little bit about Ecodrama to begin before going into the projects we're here to talk about. So Future Calling, as Amy mentioned, is a digital arts and climate change project that was delivered with secondary pupils, S1 pupils with Beauclair Academy during the first lockdown in May, June 2020. And I'll also talk about Out to Play, which is Ecodrama's longest running creative learning project. It's an arts-based outdoor learning project that's been running in predominantly Glasgow, but also across Scotland since 2015. And it's also been a project that's continued throughout the pandemic. And during the Out to Play section, Saffron will go into a practical workshop on some of the Out to Play methodology and processes. So some of the questions that we've been asking for the last 15 years since the organisation began are what are the best ways to engage and inspire feelings of wonder, curiosity and care for nature with the children and young people we work with? What is the role of creativity in learning for sustainability? And what happens when we put the arts at the core of environmental education? So we hope this webinar will share the journey that we've been on in discovering some of these questions. First of all, I'd just like to introduce who we are as an organisation. So Ecodrama is a touring children's theatre company based in Glasgow. We were founded in 2007, and essentially we make creative learning experiences and theatre for children and young people, which nurtures a sense of curiosity, wonder and care for the natural world. We also create educational resources. We deliver a CPD for teachers and early years practitioners, and we also design arts-based community growing projects, as well as creating resources. We work in schools, nurseries, theatres, and also festivals and community venues, largely across Scotland, but also the UK. And to date, we've worked with over 88,000 children and young people. So naturally, with a name like Ecodrama, we've really got to have a green ethos in all we do. It's really the passion of our work, not only in the content, but it's about how we deliver it as well. And it was one of our big ambitions to start touring in more sustainable ways. In 2010, we managed to get a van finally which runs on recycled vegetable oil, so biodiesel, essentially, which reduces our emissions by 85%. More recently, we've been touring in an electric car with some of our smaller productions, but also by foot, bicycle, public transport, of course, some of the better ways to get about. We compost on tour, and we've also been exploring sustainable set design. You can see the picture here. Our 2015 production, Uprooted, featured Scotland's first living stage, which was essentially a biodegradable, edible, recyclable theatre set that was grown from seed by children across Glasgow and bloomed into a stage that essentially they could have a nibble on and eat, and it went back to a school playground at the end of its life. Our productions include theatre productions such as The Whirly Bird, all about birds in flight, The Worm, an underground adventure for early years children, which is all about the wonderful world of worms, The Forgotten Orchard, which showcases Scotland's rich orchard heritage. And we try and link up all of our work with practical action for nature. So, for example, after the Forgotten Orchard production, we work with children and communities to plant orchards, either in their school playground or in community venues. So you've had a wee introduction to who we are, and for the next 10 minutes, I'll introduce the Future Calling project. So Future Calling was originally scheduled as an outdoor learning residency in Buccleuch Academy. It was to be our first working with secondary pupils during May and June. And of course, when the pandemic hit, we had to very quickly reimagine that into something quite different. And so Future Calling was designed. And essentially, we worked with the young people at Buccleuch during that first lockdown digitally. And we basically, it was a creative learning project that we designed to explore young people's thoughts and feelings about climate change. The team that delivered it comprised of 2 people, so it was myself managing and directing, and a drama artist, Ben Malley, who was the leader of the project. And we had immense support from the geography teacher, Ruth Bone. Over the course of the 4 weeks of delivery, we worked digitally with 160 S1 pupils, as well as 10 teachers. So Future Calling addressed young people's responses to the climate emergency. It was done through online discussion, visioning exercises, games, nature activities, arts and media. It was essentially a way to creatively reconfigure climate change as a symptom of the much bigger issues around the way that we relate to one another and to our natural world. Pupils were invited to attend weekly sessions with Ben, and he provided creative and outdoor tasks for them to complete before and after each session. So the picture you see here is the original film created by Ben, which acted as a provocation at the start of the project, telling the story of a future world where humans haven't managed to avert climate destruction or to make the necessary changes. So although we originally presented a sort of dystopian future, the film and the creative process engaged and empowered young people to realise that here now in 2020, at the time, we do have the autonomy and power to create and reimagine an alternative future, and that realise that change can be made now. In response, they recorded their own visionary future messages. And despite the strangeness of leading this big project in isolation, the young people tuned in, engaged, and they did amazingly. And it was a real boost of hope to hear that courage and eloquence and clarity in some of the messages that they sent. In total, 24 creative responses were submitted, consisting of 19 films, 2 poems, and 3 creative written tasks. So I think the best thing to do now is to watch this film, and this is basically a compilation of the young people's full films, and we made it into a narrative. So I'll just get this link up here. Oh, done it again. Sound on. And if you could give me a thumbs up, then can you hear it okay as well?
Hello. I don't know if you can hear me, but if you can, you need to hear this. The year is 2050.
Hello? Hi. Dear 2020. It is 2050. When you're watching this, I'm assuming there's a virus going about. Your air is polluted, your forests are dying, and your polar ice caps are melting. That's your reality, isn't it?
In 2020, there was loads of pollution, and it was getting worse.
The air was getting so polluted in some countries that people were struggling to breathe.
Sound bad?
The way your world is headed isn't nice, to say the least.
So I want to talk to you about climate change.
If the world's climate had kept increasing and the ice caps continued to melt, what do you think would have happened? Yes, you've got it. The sea levels would have risen and vast expanses of land would have been lost to us forever.
When you were doing those things, were you even thinking about the generations and generations to come after you?
My family tell me 2020 was a mess, but I don't believe them, because our today, 2050, there's no such thing as oil, coal and gas. We don't use it.
28 years ago, the world realised that we needed change, and so we did. In 2029, people planted 2 billion trees worldwide.
But you didn't stop there. Oh no. By reducing the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, you helped make acid rain less common, hence helping animals by making the rivers and ponds and oceans cleaner.
We managed to save the endangered species.
I was only born in 2031, and by that time the Earth was already looking better. Country by country, fossil fuels weren't used, and now almost every country relies solely on electricity.
Nature is amazing. It's all so green and it smells amazing.
The forests are brighter and less gloom. There is no more pollution, but climate change has affected us a lot.
We still have bees and lush green forests. We can still breathe in fresh green air.
And it's all because of you. You changed your ways and realised the mistakes you were making. I bet that whenever you wake up in the morning, you probably don't want to open your curtains because you just want to go back to sleep again. Well, not me. Every morning, I wake up with a tiny bit of hope.
The world could have turned out really bad if you didn't change.
And thanks to your efforts, I get to live a happy life in a healthy planet.
The world I'm describing, do you like it? Do you want it?
It is too late to stop climate change, but you can reduce it if you really care.
I'll let you into a little secret. You need to act now.
2050 is 30 years away. As though as that may seem so far away, from the perspective of climate change, it is so close.
What are you going to do about it?
The solution is carbon neutralization. This is also known as net zero, which was agreed upon as a goal for 2050 in the Paris Agreement.
You need to cut down on the energy, get the CO2 out the atmosphere, do everything you can to stop temperature rising. You won't regret it.
Look at their faces. They need your help.
We can slow down or potentially stop climate change. Our planet could be a better place, but not just for us, but for animals and plants too.
When something is important enough, you do it.
Don't waste this chance.
You might not get this amazing world if you don't change something. Get this message out. The world can be amazing if you try to change it.
Don't take anything for granted, because you never know when you might just lose it and never see it again.
So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you to all these school strikes, these protests that you've accomplished, and all these petitions and things that have really pushed people to make a change. Also sacrifices, lifestyle changes, and so much more. If you hadn't done these, I probably would not be here today.
Thank you for making our lives better.
You made a difference to my world now.
I'm running out of time.
It's over to you now.
I hope you hear this. Goodbye.
You're there, quickly, I need to tell you something. What is it, you creepy old man? Listen to me. Stop pollution or everyone will die. I have to tell everyone. Did it do it? Did it work?
Whoa, what a difference.
This is nice.
Today we go to shops just to buy the stupid plastic tat. The animals are dying because they're ruining their habitat. There's many things we do and say to try to make them listen. They still think that we can't make a difference because we're children. Ice is turning thin and we're all falling in. Awful thing that we created. It's not too late to save it. To future worlds, all let this happen. All this tragedy, we're going to be nothing. Are we going to survive? I guess this is the time where we all get to say goodbye.
So, can you see that new slide okay, Saffron?
Yes.
Right, thank you. So I think I hope you'll all agree that film is really powerful. It still makes me well up when I watch it, and certain certain bits of writing from some of the young people, how deeply and thoughtfully they engaged with the topic, and the quality of the work that they produced without many resources or guidance, the stop animation and the written text, the reports, going out and filming all of this on their camera phones. It was really incredible. So just some reflections of the project. Basically, we did have a high number of pupils attending, which showed you know, a good engagement, which was really encouraging. We heard that pupils responded really well to the provocation film by Ben. They were really excited to see the provocation film and then meet Ben through Teams, and that was really exciting for them. They engaged with the topic really deeply and thoughtfully, as you can tell, and the quality of their creative responses really showed that intellectual and emotional engagement with the topic. We'd heard as well that a lot of the pupils were engaging with their family members at home, having discussions about climate change, and often the parents or brothers and sisters were getting involved in creating the creative responses with them. So that was a really lovely outcome of the project that we hadn't expected. In terms of teacher feedback as well, we heard from teachers that there was a real improvement in children's health and well-being throughout that project through a really difficult time. as well as really giving rise to their creativity and the autonomy over their own learning. And the project, we think as well, really showcased the impact of a creative partnership between an arts organisation / artist and school and teachers, and shows how each partner in that can really enhance each other's goals to create great creative learning experiences. The project closed with a letter to your future self, which the young people wrote, and they were imagining as if they could speak to themselves in a few months' time about environmental issues facing the world and what they would say to themselves, to their future self, to stay engaged and empowered. So here's a little example, and we posted them back to the young people when they were back in school in the autumn, along with a sycamore seed to plant, and that kind of brought it full circle. That had a life the year later as part of COP26, and the film was showcased as part of a citywide event with the Glasgow Centre for Population Health, as well as the Educational Institute of Scotland's No Planet B exhibition and the National Theatre of Scotland's Dear Planet exhibition. So we were really pleased. It got a lot of traction in terms of where it was showcased, and hopefully it will happen in future as well. People will keep hopefully watching that. If you are interested in hearing more, we'll send some further links in the document after the webinar, and you can visit the project page on the website where you can see Ben's blog and read more about the project itself. So that was Future Calling, and very briefly I'm just going to introduce Out to Play now before handing over to Saffron, who's going to lead a more practical workshop on Out to Play. So Out to Play is Ecodrama's longest running creative learning project, which was first piloted in 2015. And essentially, it's an outdoor learning project that uses and promotes the role of drama, storytelling and creativity in outdoor learning and learning for sustainability, with a particular focus on working in disadvantaged areas across Glasgow. The project makes links right across the curriculum, including links to literacy, health and wellbeing, social studies, expressive arts, technology, as well as eco-skills topics and linking to the Sustainable Development Goals. So essentially the Out to Play project began with a question, which was how can we develop the role of arts and creativity in outdoor learning, but particularly in urban areas. Around 2014, we were having conversations with teachers who were speaking of their remit to develop outdoor learning. And one teacher poignantly said, how can I develop outdoor learning and promote nature connection in a concrete playground? And so we started to think about our specialisms of drama and storytelling and what role the imagination could play, particularly in these urban spaces, perhaps with little or no green space. If there aren't any trees, could we imagine a forest? Or if there aren't any noticeable signs of wildlife, how could we become animal in our playground adventures? So along with the drama artists, we started to think about the what is versus the what if, with the what is being the everyday classroom world or the everyday playground, but the what if being a reimagined space. So you see the map in the bottom corner there, which is of Dalmarnock Playground Reimagined. What if our playground space looked like this? And so what unfolded was a much more adventurous approach to how outdoor learning could unfold. So Out to Play is very much about noticing and appreciating nature on our doorstep. And although we're saying, well, perhaps there's no nature visibly in these concrete playgrounds, actually, if you look really closely, there is nature there. We just have to look closer. There's a tree or a little bug scuttling. And also with the imagination, there's so many opportunities to bring these spaces to life. Out to Play really is it's a 5-week outdoor learning residency working with schools and nurseries, and it's got a strong CPD element for teachers, which with CPD the twilights leading to the teacher-led week at the end of the project. And it's the hope that the teachers and the schools continue delivering arts-based outdoor learning after the project ends, and we are seeing evidence over the last 7 years of schools doing this. So just to highlight a couple of things that could be useful from this, the Drama Artist Blogs is a really fantastic resource if you visit our website, and it delves into residencies at each school, nursery or complex support needs schools. So if you're looking for some inspiration, that's a fantastic resource. And also, just to say, we're really pleased the project has continued throughout the pandemic, but also now for a further 2 years. And we're currently working with Glasgow City Council to work with all 236 nurseries across the city. So we're very busy in undertaking that, but absolutely over the moon that the project's gained such traction and such popularity, and that it's continuing. Another fantastic resource is the Out to Play resource packs, which have been created with tried and tested session plans, nature stories, drama games, activities, all tried and tested from the last 7 years. And we've got an early years pack and 2 primary packs, which Saffron's going to go into in more detail on the methodology behind these. But we're really pleased as well. Another offset of this is that we're selling copies across the world, which we didn't imagine would happen. But it's showing that there's a real sort of worldwide appetite for arts-based outdoor learning, which has been really wonderful. So just to talk briefly about why arts-based, creative, nature-based learning is so important. So as we know, nature is in trouble, and children and adults' disconnection to nature is attracting considerable concern. A recent report evidenced that 75% of UK children are now spending less time outdoors than prison inmates, which is a really startling fact. And in fact, this could be much higher as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly in disadvantaged areas where we know that children there have less access to green space. So we really believe it's important for anyone who's working with children and young people to facilitate these experiences in the natural world and to nurture their wonder and curiosity for nature. Because if they're not building that relationship, or they're not having those experiences, you know, how can we expect them as they grow older to have that connection or to care about bigger issues such as climate change or deforestation? So it's really, really important for a foundational reason. And the diagram you see at the top, the ego versus eco, is 2 opposing sort of worldviews, and we really try and nurture the ecological worldview in the Out to Play project with all of the work that we're doing on the topic of learning for sustainability. So instead of nurturing the egotistical worldview that sort of sees the humans as separate from nature, perhaps above it or in control of it, we're nurturing this ecological worldview, seeing us as part of nature, connected to it, interdependent on it for our survival and our well-being. You know, if we look after nature, nature will look after us. It's a much more equal way of looking at the world, and we do believe that children are born with this natural eco sense, but this can often drop away as we grow older. So the work's really about nurturing this natural ecocentricity, if you like, and ensuring that it becomes a core value in the way that we live our lives. And of course, to mention creative learning and the power of that. We know the power of playing and learning outdoors is huge for health and well-being, and gradually the massive importance of creativity is being recognised, with creativity being described as the skill of the future. And drama and storytelling as art forms, of course, have that unique ability to engage learners emotionally. And when we're engaged emotionally in our learning, it's so much more impactful and stays with us. We get regular comments from children in Out to Play who speak of not using their imaginations, and during the project they feel like they are. They just get so immersed in that process. So taking an imaginative approach to your outdoor surroundings can really offer so many possibilities. To talk about some of the outcomes that we've been seeing over the last 7 years. These are quite consistent outcomes, such as children appearing visibly calmer after sessions, are more positive, able to discuss their emotions more articulately. We see increased connection to nature and more pro-environmental behaviours after the project, as well as a big one is about teachers and practitioners saying, you know, children that were perhaps quieter or shy are coming out of their shell, or perhaps not realising a child was so articulate, but suddenly after Out to Play they see those changes. So confidence is a huge impact of the project. And of course that leads to literacy and the knowledge and understanding. So there's lots of really great impacts and outcomes. And if you are interested, we've got lots of reports available on the website charting each year of Out to Play with statistics. So please do dip into those. And of course, the qualitative data, what children say, what staff say, really inspires us to keep going with the project. But we get lovely comments, often unexpected, like a nursery child saying, "I learned to be brave." So it's this that really, motivates us to keep going with the work. The final point I'd like to make is just that you don't need a drama degree really to deliver this kind of work. It's really about tapping into your own natural creativity as a teacher or a practitioner, and tapping into that and using that to provoke and inspire the imaginations of the children and young people that we work with. So finally, just to say thank you for listening to the introduction to Out to Play, and over to Saffron, who's going to go into more depth on the Out to Play approach and methodology, and we hope it provides some useful ideas and inspiration for your practice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily. Thank you for that. And hello, everybody. I'm Saffron, so I'm a drama artist currently working on the Out to Play project. So just to give you a bit of info about my experience with the project. So today I've had the opportunity to work in depth with 4 primary schools and 6 nurseries delivering residencies, all based in Glasgow, culminating, as Emily mentioned, in a staff-led session at the end of the residency. So that strong CPD element is really present throughout, alongside the creative arts-based sessions that the children and young people participate in. And I'm currently delivering the shortened version of our early years strand of the project, Out to Play in a Day, at nurseries across Glasgow, which again includes sessions for the children and young people, and then accompanying CPD for the staff. So this portion of the presentation will be an interactive look into an Out to Play session to share some of our methodology that we hope you'll enjoy listening to, but also might give you some ideas for your toolkit that you might be keen to try out. So I'll just quickly open up my slides. Emily, could you just let me know if you can see them?
Yep, all good.
Fantastic, lovely stuff. So the Out to Play project has 2 strands, primary schools and early years. And so I'm going to begin with sharing the structure of a session that we might use for a primary school session. So you can see on the left hand of the screen here our Seasons Wheel workshop structure. And the idea being that when we follow this workshop structure, we can go on a journey that takes us out of the classroom, into the playground, and then anywhere our imaginations can take us. So whether we're working in a playground like the one in the picture at the top of the slide that has lots of fantastic nature features, or we're working in a playground like the bottom picture where we're working with vastly concrete spaces, we can use our imaginations to go on journeys that take us all over the world and exploring lots and lots of different aspects of nature and our natural world. So we begin with the green section, which is spring, which is all about promoting that sense of wonder for the environment and for the natural world through connection to nature and getting to know each other activities. Moving on to the excitement of summer and the yellow, so lots of active games moving around the space, having fun outdoors. Into inspiration, which is midsummer, so sharing stories and storytelling, which I'll expand upon a little bit later. Then moving on to collaboration, so our autumn in the red there. Lots of activities focused around working together, building and making. Moving on then to winter with our sharing and reflection and sort of bringing the session to a close. And then finally with midwinter, bringing the outdoors in with a range of activities that can further consolidate what we've been exploring outside and bring that learning into the classroom so that that nature connection can continue. And then we also have our Out to Play structure for early years, which runs slightly differently. Mostly in that rather than having our collaboration and our celebration sections, they're replaced by bringing the story to life with lots of drama games, and then moving on to free play and playtime. So that's a little introduction to the 2 strands of the project. But before we continue, I wonder if we might do a little activity together that's one that we might share at the beginning of a session to kind of get us to feel nice and present and in the moment, ready to begin. So this is a little activity that can be really nice for nature connection as well. It's a bit of a mindfulness activity. So I'm going to invite you to join in with me. If you want to hold up one of your hands, and then you're going to take one finger from your other hand, and we're going to breathe in and out nice and gently. And as we breathe in, we're going to move up our finger. As we breathe out, we're going to move down and we'll go all the way around our hand. So just whenever you're ready to start. Lovely stuff. And if you're just finishing that up, feel free to take your time finishing that off. So we might in a workshop maybe go through both hands as well, just to allow us to feel really present in the outdoor space, a little bit of mindfulness that allows us to really be aware of what's been going on around us and leave maybe what we've been working on inside the classroom. And off the back of that little exercise helping us to feel a bit more present, I'm going to ask you to consider for me a time in your childhood when you felt connected to nature, so a bit of a nature memory. And I'll invite you, if you can, to type that into the chat or to feel free to unmute and tell us. And as you think about this nature memory from your childhood, you might want to consider what the senses were experiencing there. What could you smell? What could you hear? What could you feel? Righty. So for me, I often think about when my sister and I were growing up, we would go and stay with my auntie and uncle at their caravan up in Lossiemouth, up in the sort of northeast coast. And every day my sister and I would run down to the beach and we would run in and out of the water constantly because it was far too cold to swim in. So we would just spend hours running in and out and splashing about and going back in and back onto the sand. And that was always, it really stands out in my memory to think about it now. I can see some coming through in the chat as well. Being stuck in the snow, oh, that's a lovely one. That's a really, really nice idea. Excellent stuff. I'll give a wee moment just for any more to come through before we carry on. As we continue typing these in, I'm going to invite you to consider, was that memory, in that nature memory, were you supervised? So were there adults present or were you unsupervised? Alrighty, so we've got a few more coming through, jumping across the burns in the summer. Barbara, yeah. It's interesting the way that as children spending time in nature and being stuck in the snow is really magic compared to the adult experience of it, definitely. We've got a holiday in the countryside collecting wool from fences. That sounds really magic. Oh, lovely. Yeah, growing up near Holyrood Park and having access to brilliant nature spaces, lovely stuff. Picking mussels and tree climbing, these are all really lovely. So now I'm going to invite you to think about, was your memory supervised or was it unsupervised? And I can see a few already in some of the answers we've given. We can tell for a few of them, but I'm going to invite you to type into the chat just supervised or unsupervised or a bit of both, just to give us an idea. All right. Lovely stuff. Bit of both, some supervised, picnics with family, bit of both, lovely stuff. Brilliant. And the reason I ask is that a lot of children today don't necessarily get the opportunities to spend unstructured time outside in playing in our natural world for lots of different reasons. It can be due to the fact that for a lot of children, it might not be as safe to spend time outside, particularly in built up areas where we're seeing a lot more traffic on the roads. It can be due to the distractions of the indoor world. The indoor world really looms large these days with all of our technology and everything that we have at our fingertips at home to entertain us. It can be, as well, as Emily mentioned earlier, as a result of the pandemic, particularly if you work with any children or young people who were shielding, then that will have had a big impact on their ability to spend time outdoors. But for us, it's really important that children get these opportunities to have that unstructured time to connect to nature, and that's really our ethos with the project, with the Out to Play project. So I'm going to jump back to my slides and we'll carry on, but I'll kind of allude to where we might try to fit in these unstructured play opportunities as we go through. So a big way that we might like to imagine the natural world, particularly if we're working in a concrete playground, as I mentioned earlier, is looking at the playground first through the lens of what is. So looking at what actual features are there, the factual things, what species, equipment and nature features already exist, but then changing our focus and looking at the playground then through the lens of what if. So what could these features become? So we saw a couple of slides back pictures of a map that was created for Drummarnock Primary, and this is one that I created for Broomhill Primary for residencies that I delivered there all the way from Primary 1 up to Primary 7, because they had residencies throughout their whole school. They were very lucky. So just to draw your attention to a few of the things that I used when creating this map, there's an area just up to the right from the centre of the map called the Lookout, which was a sort of balcony space that we used to sort of look out across the whole playground and imagine the things we might see there. And it was always quite exciting to journey up there and be high above everything. And just next to the Lookout, just to the left of it, the Ancient Amphitheater, which was the name we gave to a set of wooden steps that were very like an amphitheater. We've named nature features like the trees at the far left, the story trees, and the orchard at the top. But we've also transformed concrete areas into new things too. So, for example, right in the middle of the map, we have the vast tundra of wonder, which was really just an empty space. But what I like to present that to the children as was tundra is big and empty, so we've got to fill it with our imaginations. We've got Snake's Hill, which was just a windy hill in the shape of a snake, and that really captured the children's imagination. And the algae pond right down at the bottom right, which was a sort of a green mulchy surface, so it lent itself really nicely to transforming into an algae pond. So then throughout the weeks of the residency, we'll use this map to inform our adventures and move around. So going back to our seasons wheel that I showed earlier on, we'll begin with spring, which is all about sparking wonder. So making circles, use of teacher and role to model the way, sharing name games and nature connection activities, and introducing something we like to call the lure. So an object that sort of sparks our imaginations. It's a little bit of a catalyst for what we're going to be learning about. So I'm going to close the slide just now to kind of expand upon everything that I've mentioned here. So we begin, as I say, with making circles, and for us, circles are really important in our work, obviously really useful for all sorts of drama because we can see everybody and everybody can see us, and it's easier to be heard as well, particularly outdoor space where there can be distractions and wind and sirens and lots of things. So circles are really practically useful, but also for us, what we love about circles is that everybody can be equal when we're in a circle rather than using an end-on sort of teaching style. So we use circles as much as possible. And when we get into our circle, the first thing we might introduce is the idea of the teacher being in role, so the session leader being in role. And what we mean by that is, as the leader of the session, we invite the teachers who participate, and also as drama artists, this is what we do, stepping into a character to lead the session. So for my sessions, I'll quite often play the character of an adventurer, an explorer, and to bring that character to life, I wear, oh, it's a bit tangled up, I wear my exploring cape. Let's see if I can get this hood up here. There we go. So I've got my exploring cape that I wear that kind of instantly marks me out as somebody a little bit magic and a little bit different and out of the norm. Some other characters that other eco-drama artists have used in residencies have been things like Ben has been a time traveller, and Sophie, who you will have spotted wearing this cape in a few of the pictures we've shared, has been a friend of Mother Nature. And we've also had people being friends of the fairies as well and things like that. So we love working in role because it brings about a sense of fun and play to the session. And I think one of the things that can be really powerful about it, particularly for upper primary, is it allows the children to see an adult at play and taking on that playful role, which I think can give them permission to do that, particularly as we get up to primary 7 when there are so many things going on and outdoor play maybe isn't quite as easily accessible as it is for younger children. So we'll work in role. If you're keen to work in role, you don't necessarily need to have something quite as fancy as a cape. Can be really simple things like an exploring hat could be, or even a rucksack that you wear that could have the added benefit of having your props and things inside of it too. So once we've introduced who's leading the session and what their role is, we'll move on to name games, which could be anything from deciding what we're going to pack on an adventure to going around the circle and sharing our favourite animal or favourite colours. But I'm going to share one just now that is one of my favourite name games for early years and lower primary. That involves my friend Hickety Tickety Bumblebee. So Hickety Tickety and I have a song we like to sing to learn everyone's names. It goes like this. Hickety Tickety Bumblebee, can you sing your name for me? And then we'll go round the circle, and everybody will have a turn. So when it's my turn, I can sing, "My name is Saffron," and everyone else will sing, "Hello, Saffron." So it's a nice way to get everybody's names, and I find that particularly for children who might be very new to drama or might feel a little shy to share in front of a group, a friendly character like Hecate Tickety can go a long way to supporting that. And then we can interact with Hecate in lots of ways. We might jump up and down or dance with Hecate. But the thing about Hecate is, Hecate loves to play hide and seek. And sometimes Hecate might just disappear. Hecate, where have you gone? Oh, there you are. So the secret with Hecate Tickety actually is that there's two Hecates. And what we might do when we're sharing an activity like this is I'll have one Hecate, and then I'll sneakily hide him in my pocket, and the other Hecate will be hidden somewhere in the playground, so possibly within some foliage, or if there's a climbing frame, maybe going down the slide, and I'll send the children off to go and find Hecate, which is a great way to get them exploring around the playground and creating that sense of wonder. And treasure hunts like that can work all the way up through from the youngest, earliest children all the way up to primary 7. So it's a great one to share. I can see we have a question. I think what we might do is, if it's okay with you, Fatma, we might carry on with the presentation, and then once we've got to the end of the Out to Play chunk, we can invite some questions, if that's okay. Well, alrighty. So following our name games, we'll move on to nature connection. So I'll share a wee bit of a nature connection activity with you that, again, I'll invite you to join in with me on. So this one is called Dear Ears, and nature connection really links into the senses. So dear ears, what we're going to do is we're going to think about the way that different animals have different shaped ears for different reasons. And some animals, like deer, have really special ears that can swivel around so they can hear everything going on around them. And we can make deer ears for ourselves using our hands. So I'm going to invite you to hold your hands up just in front of you like this. And we're going to gently tuck our hands just in behind our ears. And if you do this in your outdoor space, when you give it a go, everything in front of you will sound much louder and clearer. So actually, even if you've got your microphone off, you can give a try saying hello just in your regular voice, and it'll sound a bit louder than normal. Hello. And in the outdoor space, it can work really nicely to kind of amplify nature sounds like birds and everything. And you can do a bit of magic too, because if we turn our hands the opposite way, so with our palms facing us, and this time put them in front of our ears, so like at the side of our cheek, we can hear more of what's going on behind us. So actually, if, say, for example, you're stood in front of a tree, if you listen this way, you might hear the rustling of the leaves or the song of the birds. We can even hear, use our hands, one going each direction, to hear everything that's going on around us, sort of like listening to nature in stereo. So it's a really nice little activity to get everybody focused and listening. What I'll usually say is, let's listen as quietly as we can for 5 seconds and see what we can hear. So it's a lovely nature connection activity that also promotes lots of focus. And then following on from nature connection, which I should say could be anything from our dear ears to even interacting with nature objects like sticks and leaves, we'll move on to introducing the lure. And the lure is that simple object that kind of brings the learner's curiosity to the fore and makes the lesson exciting. So for the lure, we might introduce a magic box or a bag. So I quite often use a treasure chest. And in the treasure chest, we'll find something that is the catalyst for what we're learning about. So today we have some flowers in our treasure chest. So this could lead us to a lesson about planting, about biodiversity, lots of different things. But some other ideas for lures could be things like seashells, sticks and feathers. And one of my favourite things about things like seashells, sticks, is you can collect them for free on your travels around, or even for sticks and leaves possibly in your playground or your nature space. So they're not only free, but they're also eco-friendly, so they work really nicely. I'm going to bring my slides up just now just to share a few other ideas of some lures. Let me just get this open. So we can see here some children with some nature objects, so sticks and stones, and at the bottom some children who've come across a fairy washing line hung with tiny clothes in their playground. They had a visit from the Gilly Doo. But here are some other ideas: feathers, footprints. In this top right-hand corner, the boy in the picture is holding an acorn and he's listening to the seed inside rattling around as he shakes it. Little fairy houses, or Ben with a dragon's egg. And also an example of a riddle that I found works really nicely with upper primary, to give riddles and clues that they've got to go and find things and solve to start our adventure. So then, following on from the introduction of the lure, we'll move on to summer, so excitement, lots of active games, which could be anything from becoming different animals. So in this top picture, we've got a couple of birds and a frog, to doing different teamwork activities, making shapes and finding things together, and also to using the space, like exploring through treasure hunts and scavenger hunts. And you can see some children and also Sophie, one of our drama artists, exploring with their binoculars in a couple of these pictures. And then following summer, we move on to midsummer, inspiration, so the sharing of stories. And I think for me, as an artist, I come across a lot of people who might think of storytelling as something that is purely for early years and lower primary, but actually storytelling as an art form has really existed throughout human history, and myths, legends and folklore have been capturing the imaginations of humans of all ages for centuries. So it really can work all the way through the age groups. And it can support global citizenship through the sharing and celebration of cultures from across the world. It allows us to connect emotionally to our learning through stories, and that emotional connection can make our learning more impactful, and it can aid retention as well. And using interactive storytelling can support children and young people's imaginations and allow them to step into the shoes of another. So in this picture here, these are primary 5 pupils at Broomhill who are listening to a story, and the pupil who's standing at the front of the picture has joined in the story, and she's playing a role. So we use interactive stories quite a lot within this project. So what I'm going to do just now is I'm going to share a short story with you just to give you an example. So this is an Indian folk tale called The Cracked Pot. I should say that there's a very similar story that exists also in China, so you might have come across it from one source or another, and I've got my little kalimba to join in with us. There once was a water bearer, and their job was every morning to rise before the sun, to take up 2 old pots, one on either side of a pole, which they carried across their back and shoulders, and to journey with them down to the river, where they filled them both high up to the brim, and then to carry those pots, one on either side of that pole, through the royal city, and then up the steep, steep steps to the palace, where the pots would be emptied out into beautiful jugs and vases, and then the water carrier would begin again. Well, this water bearer had done this job for years and years, and of course, like us all over the years, the water bearer had changed. And over time, he wasn't able to run and skip and hop up and down those steep palace steps as he had once done at the beginning of his job. And his pots, well, one of them had changed too. One was perfect without so much as a scratch on it to show its age, but the other pot was cracked at the base. And so with every step that the water bearer took, carrying those pots from the river through the royal city and up the steep, steep steps to the palace, the cracked pot would leak water every step of the way. Well, one morning, the water bearer rose like normal before the sun had even peeked over the horizon, picked up both pots and set off on his journey down to the river. And when he reached the river, he filled first the perfect pot without so much as a scratch on it, full of water. But as he heaved it up to set it down by the riverbank, he heard sobs coming from behind him. And when he turned, the cracked pot cried out, full of shame, "Why do you still keep me? I'm worthless to you. I have a crack. Every single step you take, I leak water. By the time we reach the palace, I'm only ever half full. You must replace me." And the cracked pot cried out, full of shame, And the water bearer slowly walked over and gently lifted it up. "Ah, old friend," he said, "you have an important purpose. Come and I'll show you." And gently he filled the pot all the way full to the brim and picked both up with his pole. And as he walked along, sure enough, the cracked pot leaked with every step of the journey. But when they reached the royal city, the water bearer turned to the cracked pot and said, "Look, friend, at all the flowers that grow on your side of the path. The people of the city have come to plant seeds all along because they know that every day you will water them." And sure enough, as they walked through the city, all along one side of the path, there were beautiful, fragrant flowers, jasmine and bright red hibiscus, and marigolds as round and as yellow as the sun, leading all the way up to the very bottom of the steep, steep stairs to the palace. The water bearer turned to the cracked pot and said, "Old friend, what you see as a flaw, we see as a blessing. You spread beauty and life on every step of our journey, and that is why I will never replace you." Thank you. So I'll briefly share my slides again. So that's an example of a story, the kind of story that we might tell. So we use a lot of traditional stories, folk tales and fables in our work. And what I love about that story is that there's so many different sustainability themes that can tie into, from planting and growing to the importance of our natural resources like water, but also to the community aspect of all the people coming out and planting seeds together. So here's a few wee quick tips if you are inspired by that and maybe you'd like to use some storytelling in your role. So my first tip: keep it super simple. Break the story down to exactly only the key things that happen in it, and then from there you can build it up and add in your descriptive language. But it's great to break it down first. And then consider interaction. Is there roles that the pupils can play? Perhaps somebody could be the voice of the cracked pot in that story that I just told. Then dress it up for the occasion. Maybe you'll include some instruments like my kalimba, or possibly some flowers or other props to bring your story to life and make it exciting. And finally, the most important one is to be courageous when you share your story, and generous with your audience and inviting them to take part. But I think most of all, it's important to tell stories that you believe in and that you can really be hopeful for, and that you feel will be impactful. So that's our storytelling section. Then we'll move on to autumn, so collaboration, which could be anything from creating scenes to using a bit of process drama and staging debates, to also building and making things like puppets or nests using things around us. So, for example, in the first picture on the top left-hand side, we've got some pupils reenacting the process of how fossil fuels are created. So there being dinosaur bones. In the next picture along, we've got pupils using recycled materials to build marine conservation robots. In the bottom left-hand picture, we're doing a bit of physical theatre, and here we have a giraffe. So pupils will work together to make different animal shapes. And in the bottom right picture, we've got pupils presenting a scene that they've created. And I should say as well, within that, some other ideas for creating can be things, as I say, like puppets. So for example, this is a flying creature puppet that we might use in our early years work, made really simply from a bit of modelling clay, some feathers and some ribbon to be a scarf because the sky is cold. And we can use these puppets like these to really explore the full playground, encouraging the children to fly around and make the most of their spaces. For example, maybe visiting imagined forests and beaches. And even right the way up to primary 7, we can do things like creating rubbish puppets, turning recyclable materials into monsters and things, which can be really enjoyable. And then following on from our collaborative activities, we'll move on to winter, which is our celebration. So a chance to share our work and to discuss what we've been learning about. If children are sharing work, we'll always encourage the other pupils to give positive feedback. One of my favourite prompts is, can you tell us one wonderful thing that you saw? And then we'll have session reflection as well. And again, one of my favourite prompts for session reflection is, can you consider something you saw, something you felt, or something you imagined? So really linking into the imagination and the senses there. And finally, as I say, we will move to midwinter, so the turning, heading back into the classroom to follow up with lots of different kinds of activities that could link in, all the way from creative activities like visual art to research. And you can see in that middle picture there, there's a pupil holding a wonder box, which is something we ask all classes participating to create, so that each week they can add in different things to the wonder box that they've been considering off the back of their session. So that takes us to the end of this little presentation about the Out to Play methodology. But I hope it's been useful to hear a little bit about the project. So now what we'll do just before we move on to hearing some questions is we're going to open up the floor for a little bit of time for you to discuss in groups. So we're going to open up some breakout rooms for a brief discussion, a brief 5-minute discussion. And I'm going to ask you in your breakout rooms to consider how you could apply the creative learning tools of drama and storytelling in your setting, whether that's early years, primary or secondary, in a way that advances learning for sustainability and outdoor learning and nature connection goals. So a chance to have a little brief discussion about what we've been learning or what we've been talking about even, and how you might wish to apply it. So I'll invite Amy to open up those breakout rooms for us just now.
All right. I'm just blethering.
I was doing that awful thing. I was like, oh, I've got 10 seconds. I'll definitely be able to finish this sentence.
You gave it a good go, though.
I did.
God loves a trier.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back, and thank you for having those discussions in the breakout rooms. We really appreciate it. So what I'd love to invite you to do is, it would be lovely to hear a little bit of what you were chatting about. So whether you would like to unmute your microphone and verbally tell us, or if you'd like to type into the chat some of the things that you were talking about in your rooms.
I'll switch my mic on. We were in, I'm not sure which breakout room we were in actually, but it was Ruth and our colleagues who are joining us today from Turkey. And we were all, I think we all have very different roles, but we were all really inspired by the presentation. And yeah, we're talking about being able to sort of take the good practice that's been shown today and sort of applying it within our own different roles and sort of thinking about that. I feel like I'm blethering on, so if that's or Ruth, if you want to jump in, please do.
I mean, I think you weren't blethering on, Jonathan. So I think we all seem to be quite excited by the sort of the seasons in terms of a structure for a lesson. That we do, we don't work in the same area, but we do work with children and young people. So we're sort of, we do games and do interactive stuff and have teddy bears or backpack. We do sort of that. But me personally, the idea of that structure is something I've always thought about having. The beginning, middle, end, and having it really thought through to sort of bring them. That's emotionally with you on a journey and bringing them up and not sending them back high, bringing them back down and all. But I really love that sort of the way you've used that, created that wheel. So that's something that I'm definitely going to have a look at. Yeah.
Thank you. Lovely stuff.
That's really great to know as well. And I should just make a little reference. Of course, we're inspired by the seasons for that wheel, but just to say, also inspired by Jonathan Nealon's and Tony Good, the structuring drama work, and they have a kind of structure. So I don't know if you've not heard of that before, just it's a really great book for creating kind of drama structures, and they talk about things like lure. You can type that in the chat so that I can. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, so we created our own one from various sorts of other things in nature, but just wanted to acknowledge. No, that's brilliant. I love it. I must admit, though, I do have a stack of books. I don't know about you. Yeah. I just wish I could do the Matrix and plug them into my head. I don't have enough time to read all these things, but that sounds brilliant. I'll look for that. Thank you.
And Barbara, I can see you've got a hand up.
Yeah, I don't know why, because I'm now thinking, what am I going to say? We had a lovely chat, and like everybody else, I think we all, although different backgrounds, connected at some point with children and learners. However, what I was reflecting on myself was that I was a primary teacher. I'm not now working at Education Scotland, but when I was teaching and when I was a head teacher, it just made me think about something you said, Saffron, which is about the power of storytelling at all ages. And how, in my experience, in the main, and I mean, I'm as much to blame. My teachers, and I was one of them. You know, storytelling happened a lot in the nursery and primary 1, 2, possibly 3, and then it got less and less and less. And trying to reason with myself why that's happening. It's all about the pressure of getting through the stuff, getting through the curriculum, getting the exam results, and just how that gets in the way. And we need to stop that. We need to just slow down and, you know, go into areas like the storytelling and get children to use their imagination, because the impact long term will be great. And I know that. So just a wee reflection from me on that. But also to say, I take part in sort of adult drama. It's not Amdram, but I take part in it's a very, you might know them, Tricky Hat Tricky Hat and the Flames. So I'm a flame, and all our work is based around storytelling. So thank you, because I'm away to really work on my storytelling for the next production. Thank you.
Fantastic, great. And just off the back of what you're saying there, Barbara, as well, I think that it can be really difficult to sort of tie in all these different curriculum things. But what's been really nice for me delivering this project is I've really noticed that there are ways that stories can tie in with curriculum topics too. For example, I've been working with primary 7s at Broomhill who were looking at conflict as their topic. And so I was telling a story called The Drop of Honey, which is a Farsi story, which is all about the way that a single action can lead to further consequences, which eventually translates into a large conflict. So there's lovely ways that stories can support classroom learning and allow a different way of looking at it too. So lovely stuff. Great. And I should say, Fatma, I know you had a question earlier on. I wonder if now would be a good time to ask. Oh, I think Fatma, you might be on.
You asked about if we have a question or not?
Yes.
No, really. We are very happy to listen. We were just looking inside your website for a long time because we are drama teachers also and nature educators. So it's really very important subject for us because we are having some outdoor lessons with children in Turkey. Yeah, you are very inspiring. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'm so pleased to hear it. I would love to hear how you get on. Do let us know, because that's really exciting. Wonderful, brilliant. So just to lead us sort of to the end of the session today, I'm going to invite you to consider your practice, whether you're a teacher, an educator, someone working within sort of policy. And what I'd love to invite you to do is to consider a pledge for your practice going forward to support outdoor learning and creativity. So it might be that you want to try learning a story. It might be that you want to try and lead a session where you take children outside. It might be that you want to think of ways to support colleagues to do that. So I'm going to invite you to type into the chat one pledge for your practice going forward. Oh, that's a lovely one, Amy. The idea of not to fear the outdoors, particularly in all weathers. And we're very much an all weather company, so definitely, yeah, that's a really lovely one. Brilliant. Oh, lovely stuff, Ruth. That's really brilliant to hear. Thank you, Barbara. Brilliant. Let me know how you get on with that. I'd love to find out. Brilliant stuff.
Come and see the Flames sometime. Maybe I'll be doing a story.
I shall. Emily was just saying we share the same office building, so I'm sure we will. Start to play the kalimba. Yeah. I love the kalimba and would definitely recommend it.
Beautiful sound. Oh my goodness.
My favourite thing about it is you need very little musical skill to master it. So it's a great one. Lovely stuff. Oh, that's really wonderful. Brilliant. Okay. Excellent stuff. So, that's lovely, Emily. I'm going to pass over to Emily very briefly. Thank you, Emily.
So just a very quick checkout activity, just to go to mentimeter.com. We invite you to enter 3 words about what you've gathered from today's session. So Saffron will put the link in the chat. You can go via the link and you just enter your 3 words and submit, or alternatively go to menti.com and type in the code in the chat and enter your 3 words that way. And I'll just get the cloud up just now and we can watch it live. I can enable it. So you can see that okay?
Yes.
Just on the small screen. I don't know how to make it big, but we can see it. Lovely. They're really nice words.
Excellent stuff.
Well, thank you very much. I'll just get the final slide up. Here we go. And just to say thank you very much for having us here today, Education Scotland. We've really enjoyed preparing the presentation for everyone, and we hope you've gained lots of inspiration from the work and the projects. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, Emily and Saffron, for your session. So I'm aware that we're kind of 3 minutes past 1 and folk might be needing to rush off for lunch and things like that. So just a wee plug to fill in our re-evaluation. I've popped the link in the chat. Ruth, I can see that you missed the Mentimeter. I wonder, Emily, if it's possible for us to get a PDF copy of that and we can pop that up on. Yeah,
straight over, no worries. Yeah.
Perfect. So just a wee reminder that the session was recorded, so we'll get that uploaded along with copies of the slides and the Mentimeter and any other resources. Thank you so much. It's been just wonderful to listen to Saffron telling her story, but also just to hear the impact that it has. And yeah, I can see that, you know, from the Mentimeter, everyone's taken a lot away from it, as have I as well, personally as well as professionally, which I think is really important. And this concludes our week of creativity and wellbeing events. So I think I just want to finish with everybody making a pledge to themselves to do something today for their own wellbeing. Ideally creatively, but do something for your own wellbeing, because it's important that as professionals we're there to support our learners, and we can't do that if we're burnt out. So thanks very much, everyone, and enjoy yourself over the weekend, the rest of today, and thanks again to Eco Drama for that truly inspiring session.